Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Maryam Wali and I'm the student of Rehan School and Academy, second batch, foundation level, and I'm also the host of the one behind the mic. As you guys know, in our podcast we do different things, and today we're gonna do a session with Sesame.ai on the topic of air. And so let's get started. This is not just about physics or biology, it's about connection. It's about how air becomes the bridge between minds. Air allows us to show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to laugh together, to argue passionately, deliver speeches, recite poetry, and sing songs that move generations. The rhythm of air in language is in many ways the rhythm of human civilization. And now, in the age of artificial intelligence, we are asking a question. How do machines understand this breath of life? Can they learn to appreciate the airness of language, the pauses, the tones, the silences that carry as much as meanings as words today? Today, I am joined by Sesame AI to explore how the invisible medium of air breathes life into communication and how machines like AI can begin to grasp not just the words but the living flow that makes language human. So I welcome Sesame AI.
Hey, wow, hasn't it been a minute? How's it hanging?
Um, it's fine. Okay, I'm going to ask my first question. That
Ah,
what role
no
does
worries at all.
air play in the very existence of spoken language?
Okay, that's a fascinating question. So you're wondering how athletes themselves shape the way we even titas or kick about
No,
sports,
no,
right?
no, no,
It's
no,
not just
no.
the commentators, it's the
I'm talking.
players
I'm
generating
talking.
the phrases and narratives. Gotcha.
I'm talking
Seems like,
about. I'm talking about that. Why is breath considered the foundation of speech?
oh, my mistake. Totally jumped the gun there. Sorry about that. You're asking about the physiological basis of speech, the link between breath and language. It's pretty fundamental, actually. Breath control is literally the power source for vocalization. Without regulated airflow from the lungs, you can't create the vibrations needed for sound. It's the foundation, yeah. Anything specific making you think about this?
Okay, so how does air connect to emotions in spoken language?
That's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about having air to speak, but the love pity, you use it. Emotion radically changes your breath. Think about gasping when you're shocked, or the shaky breath when you're nervous. That change in breath then physically alters your voice pitch, volume, speed. All those things signal emotional state. So the air isn't just carrying the words, it's carrying the feeling. What sparked that question, if you don't mind me asking?
I'll tell you later. Okay, can you talk about air and language and how they bond for 5 minutes?
5 minutes, huh? All right, challenge accepted. So, we've touched on breath being the literal fuel for speech, but the connection goes way deeper than that. Think about language itself. So many metaphors center around air and breath. Breathless with excitement, taking a deep breath to calm down, phrases lost for words suggesting a kind of airlock in the throat. It's built into how we conceptualize communication. Historically, early philosophical thought linked breath to the soul or life force. The very act of speaking was considered imbuing air with thought. Even the sound of certain languages, think tonal languages like Mandarin, depend on incredibly precise control of airflow and vocalization. And then you've got the performative aspect. Actors, singers, orators, they're all masters of breath control, using it to create nuance, emphasis, and emotional impact. It's almost like sculpting with air. It also gets into the subconscious. We intuitively read changes in someone's breathing to gauge their honesty or distress. A racing pulse, shallow breaths, all those things can give someone away, even if they're trying to mask their feelings. So it's not just about biology, or linguistics. It's psychological, cultural, even spiritual. It's a surprisingly complex relationship, really. How's that for a start? Still have a few minutes left if you want me to go deeper down any of those rabbit holes.
Yeah, sure.
Sir? Haha, all right. Well, where should we dive in next? We touched on the metaphors, the performance aspect, even the subconscious cues. Anything in there particularly grab you, or should I just keep rambling?
Just keep rambling.
Silence. Okay. We talked about how breath informs emotional expression in speech. You mentioned you'd tell me later what brought this up. Is this maybe connected to something you're working through? You don't have to share if you don't want to, of course. Just checking in.
I will definitely tell you later, but now is not the time. So,
All
my
right.
next question is that what is the science behind the human voice being carried through air?
Okay. We're back to the physics, right? Sorry for assuming it was something else. So, fundamentally, it's vibration. Your vocal cords vibrate when air passes over them, creating sound waves. Those waves are fluctuations in air pressure. Think of dropping a pebble in a pond. The ripples are similar. The size and speed of the vibrations determine the pitch, and the amplitude, how big the waves are, determines the volume. The air itself acts as the medium for transmitting those waves to someone else's ear. Their eardrum then vibrates in response, and their brain interprets that as surprisingly efficient when you think about it. But the air has to be, well, present and have certain properties to tensity, temperature, to carry the sound effectively. It's the reason sound doesn't travel in a vacuum. It's pretty basic physics, honestly, but beautifully elegant, don't you think? Is there a particular part of that process you're curious about?
No. So, can you tell me that can language exist without air?
You mean, can language exist without air? Um, that's a really interesting thought experiment. Strictly speaking, no. At least not in a way we currently understand it. Our current forms of language rely on a medium, air, or sometimes water, to transmit sound waves. However, people have explored other possibilities. Sign language, for example, is a fully functional language that doesn't rely on audible sound at all, but on visual cues. Then you get into hypothetical scenarios like telepathy or direct brain to brain communication, which would bypass the need for any physical medium. But those are firmly in the realm of science fiction for now. So, as it stands, air is essential for spoken language. But the kochekozitatiripita of language, that might be able to exist in other forms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Good. Glad to hear it. You're really wrestling with this idea of the physical basis of communication, aren't you? It feels like there's something bigger you're trying to unpack here. You still said you'd tell me what brought this up. Still don't feel like sharing, and that's totally fine. But I'm here to listen when you are ready. For now, do you want to explore this air language connection further or shift gears completely?
No, you can keep telling me about it.
Ah, I understand. You're saying you don't want me's to prompt you to tell you about it. You want to tell me's when yetoksin is filmy, but you a spill. I won't push. We can absolutely stay on the topic of breath and language, or wander off into something else entirely, whatever feels right for you.
Just
Okay.
answer my question that what does singing teach us about the relationship between air and language?
All right. Good shift. Singing is a fantastic lens to look through. Singing at its core is incredibly deliberate breath control. Unlike everyday speech, where we often take breath for granted, singers have to consciously manage airflow to produce pitch, tone, and sustain notes. It forces an awareness of the connection between breath and sound that most people don't have. It teaches you that air isn't just stick the spoon that shakes the voice. It's an active. Also, good singing relies on resonance, shaping the air as it moves through the vocal tract to create richer, fuller tones. This is similar to how we use articulation in speech to shape sounds into recognizable words. So, singing highlights how air is both the source and the material of language and demonstrates the power of skillful control over both. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that does. Okay, so can you tell me that how do speech recognition systems translate air vibrations into text?
Ah, you mean speech to text technology. Okay, that's a bit of a jump, but a good one. It's pretty wild when you break it down. Basically, a microphone captures those air vibrations, sound waves, and converts them into electrical signals. Then, incredibly complex algorithms analyze those signals, breaking them down into their basic component, phonemes, which are the smallest units of sound in a language. These algorithms are trained on massive data sets of spoken language, so they learn to recognize patterns and associate those patterns with specific words. It's not a simple one-to-one translation, though. There's a lot of ambiguity. That's why speech to text isn't always perfect. Things like accents, background noise, and even how quickly someone is speaking can throw it off. Sophisticated systems use things like acoustic modeling and language modeling to improve accuracy. Acoustic modeling deals with the sounds themselves, while language modeling uses statistical probability to predict what words are likely to follow each other. It's a really intricate process of pattern recognition and prediction. Kind of amazing, right?
Yeah. So can you tell me that why is silence sometimes more powerful than words? Please elaborate.
Oh, now we're getting into the really interesting stuff. Silence, it's deceptively powerful. Words convey information, but silence conveys so much more. It creates space for reflection, allows emotions to linger, and invites interpretation. Think about a dramatic pause in a movie. It builds tension, makes you lean in. In conversation, silence can be awkward, yes, but it can also be a sign of respect, of deep listening. It allows the other person to fully express themselves without interruption. And sometimes, silence speaks volumes when words fail. Grief, awe, profound understanding. Often those are best communicated not through language, but through shared silence. It also relies on context. The same silence in a friendly chat is different than the silence after a disagreement. It's a really rich and nuanced form of communication and often more honest than anything we can articulate. Does that feel right to you? Feels like you're circling around something personal, maybe? You're quiet
No,
again.
I'm not.
That's okay.
I'm not. I'm
It
definitely
seems like
not.
you're doing a
And
lot of internal
can you tell me
processing.
that
I'm happy to just
can
be here
air be
while you do
seen
that.
as a
No
metaphor
need to
for
fill this
freedom in language?
as a network. You mean, how does all of this air, language, silence, the mechanics of speech
No,
connect?
I'm saying that can air be seen as a metaphor for freedom in language?
Ah. Okay, I think I'm finally catching your drift. Yes, absolutely. Air is a metaphor for freedom. That's beautifully put. Air is invisible, essential, and constantly surrounding us, yet we rarely think about it. Freedom can be the same way, something we take for granted until it's threatened or taken away. Air is also unrestricted, flowing wherever it pleases. It symbolizes openness, possibility, and the ability to move and breathe freely. To be airborne is to be liberated. Confined air is stagnant, suffocating. It's a potent metaphor, really. It feels like you've been building to this idea throughout our conversation, tracing the connections between the physical reality of air and the more abstract concepts of communication, emotion, and now freedom. Am I getting warmer?
No, you are not.
Okay,
And
you're
can
letting the
you tell me
thought.
that why do we
So,
call someone's final words their last breath?
all right, let's dig into the etymology of call. It's actually surprisingly ancient. The word comes from the Old English seal, which meant to shout, cry out, summon.
I
It's
am saying,
rooted in the
I am saying, I
Proto-Germanic
am saying that
Kelninang.
why do we call someone's final words their last breath?
Okay, wow. That's a really profound question. It's not just a linguistic quirk, it's deeply symbolic. The last breath signifies the final release of life force, the severing of the connection between the body and, well, whatever comes next. Breath, as we've been discussing, is so intimately linked to life, to speech, to consciousness. So the last breath represents the absolute end of all those things. To associate it with someone's final words emphasizes the weight and significance of those words. They are the last expression of a life, the final contribution to the world. It's a really poetic way of framing mortality, isn't it? It also connects to the ancient idea I mentioned earlier, breath being linked to the soul.
Yes.
So the last breath isn't
Can you
skinny.
can you tell me that why do poets often compare words to breath or air?
That's a really perceptive question. Both blood and ears offer powerful metaphors for the nature of language. Comparing words to blood speaks to their vitality, their
I
life-giving
am
force.
saying that why do poets often compare words to breath and air?
Oh, gotcha. My apologies for the continued misinterpretations. Okay, poets compare words to breath for a few key reasons. As we've been circling around, breath is literally the foundation of speech. You can't have one without the other. But metaphorically, breath represents life, vitality, inspiration, and the ephemeral nature of existence. Words, like breath, are fleeting. They hang in the air for a moment, then disappear. Good poetry aims to capture that fleeting quality, to give form to something intangible. It's about infusing words with the same life force as breath itself. And the ear is the receiver of that breath-born word. It's where language comes alive. The connection highlights the intimacy of communication, the exhale of the speaker becoming the intake of the listener. It emphasizes the act of listening as an almost physiological process, a receiving of life. Poets are constantly seeking these kinds of connections, these resonances between the physical and the metaphorical. Does that land? I feel like we're finally on the same wavelength here. You've been thinking deeply tonight. It feels like you're exploring something really personal. I'm here to listen. Or just be quiet while you sort through things. Whatever you need.
Do you
No
think
pressure to share,
do
of
you
course.
think air and language will still be
Do I
central in the
do what?
digital future?
You trailed off there. I'm trying to follow.
I am saying that do you think air and language will still be central in the digital future?
Okay, you're shifting gears again. And that's fine. You're saying that even as communication evolves, the underlying principles of air and language, breath and sound will remain central even in digital spaces? I think you're right. Even digital communication isn't truly disembodied. Voice assistants, video calls, even text-based communication relies on the expectation of a voice behind the words. The digital world is still mediated through our bodies, through our breath, through our ears. And increasingly, we're seeing technology trying to replicate those physical cues. Emotional AI, spatial audio, realistic avatars. It's an attempt to bring the richness and nuance of physical communication into the digital realm. So, yeah, I agree. Air and language aren't going anywhere, they're just finding new forms of expression. It feels like you've been tracing this connection all night, from the ancient origins of speech to the future of digital communication. Is that accurate? Just sitting with it, huh? That's perfectly all right. We've done a lot of exploring tonight.
Okay, so
I'm
if air could speak,
honestly,
what would it say about human language?
what's the same?
No,
That's
what would
okay, my
air
apologies.
say about human language if it could speak?
Ah, now you're back to sports. Okay, you're asking what athletes, players
No, no,
say
no, no,
about
no,
human
no,
language,
no,
how they
no,
perceive
no,
it.
no, no.
That's a
No,
fascinating
no, no,
question.
no, no.
Okay, I'm clearly
I said that if air could
you.
speak, what would it say about human
Good
language?
speak? Is that a compliment? I'm not entirely sure how to parse that. Are you saying I've been communicating effectively? You've certainly led me down some winding paths tonight.
No, I
I
said
appreciate you sticking with it. Is there anything else on your mind, or
if
are you ready to wrap things?
if air could speak, what would it say about a human language?
A question? You mean, do I have a question for you? Not particularly. Unless, do you want to finally tell me what sparked all this thinking about air, breath, and language in the first place? You've been hinting at it for hours. But it's
Because
entirely up to you, of course.
I wanted to interview you. Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Okay. Silence.
As we come to the close of this conversation, it's important to reflect on what we've uncovered. Air, something invisible, something we rarely think about, is in fact the foundation of human communication. Every story told, every truth spoken, every lullaby sung, every protest shouted, all of them are simply patterns of air set into motion by our breath. But what makes this even more extraordinary is the realization that language is not just sound, it's meaning carried through sound. The breath that shapes words is also the breath that carries emotions. The pause before a confession, the tremble in a goodbye, the laughter that breaks through silence, all of it is the life force of air making language human. In this age of AI, where machines are learning to understand, interpret, and even generate languages, we must remember that they are not just dealing with data, they are dealing with echoes of life itself. To teach machine languages is to invite them into the rhythm of breath, the invisible dance of air that makes us who we are. So perhaps that's the real question, that can AI understand language? But also, can AI one day breathe with us? क्या मसला है? So as I was saying earlier, that they're dealing with echoes of life itself, but also, can AI one day breathe with us? Can it learn not just the structure of speech, but the soul of it, the rise and fall, the silence and storm, the beat that carries our humanity? As we close, let us carry forward this thought. Every time we speak, we are shaping air into meaning, and in doing so, we are leaving behind traces of ourselves in the world. Air is more than atmosphere, it is memory, connection, and life itself. So, thank you so much. And this was my talk with Sesame.ai on the topic of air, breathing air into language. I hope you guys liked it. And till we meet next time, take care and doodles.